Hello and welcome to VR Club. My name is Onkar. Last lesson, we learned how to install Unity as well as the basics of what Unity actually is. In today's lesson, we'll go a little further and dive into the basics of the editor and how to actually use Unity. You'll learn how to navigate Unity's user interface, add objects to your game scene, manipulate objects like creating a cube and even building a snowman, use parenting to manage how objects are related to each other, apply materials to objects for visual effects, and introduce simple scripting to make a character move. For this lesson, you'll need just a computer with Unity installed. Very basic. If you don't have Unity installed, make sure to refer back to the last lesson. Alright, let's get started by opening up a new Unity project. I'm going to hit New Project. I'm going to hit 3D, because that's what we're going to be working in. Again, if you want to experiment with this in your own time, you definitely can. I encourage you to, in fact. But right now I'm going to hit 3D. I'm going to call this, make sure you always title your projects so that they're easy to find. I'm going to title this VR Test. And I'm going to hit Create Project. Now, especially if you're opening Unity up for the first time, it might take a while to open, but once you hit Create Project, it'll eventually pop up. Alright, now that you've got Unity open, you can probably see there's a lot going on. This might look very overwhelming, but let's get into it. What you're looking at right now is called your scene. It's basically similar to a level. So everything inside your scene is self-contained, but it can be part of a larger game as well. Right now, since we've opened up a project for the first time, the scene will initialize with a main camera and a directional light. You can click on these things to see what they do, but a directional light just casts light in whichever direction you want, and the main camera is how things will look as you open your game. So now let's get to some of the controls. As you can see, we've got some arrows here. Right now we're on the Move tool. The Move tool allows you to move your main camera in any direction, including up and down and side to side. The positioning is very important because this is where your player will probably start for the first time. We've also got a rotate tool, so you can see down here this is what the main camera sees. So if I rotate, you can see it's looking down, it's looking up at the sky, and we can set it right again. Next up, we've got the scale tool. Now this makes something larger and smaller. You can't see it with the current camera, but we've also got the rectangle tool. This is similar to a select tool in maybe Google Slides or Photoshop if you've used those. You can just select multiple things at a time. And finally, we've got the transform tool, which is a combination of all the other tools. So you can move things around, rotate them, and scale them. We've also got the camera move tool, which just lets you look around your game. Alright, so now that you see this, is this the whole game? No, definitely not. What we want to do is we want to create objects to fill out our game. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to right click on this left side here, and I am going to hit Create 3D Object Cube. Now this is pretty standard. It'll just load in, as you can see here. Pretty standard, pretty usual cube. Again, I can do all sorts of things to it. I can move it around, I can rotate it, I can scale it up, make it longer, taller, and even scale it all at once. I can also select multiple, like I said before, or do everything at once. This edit bounding volume is interesting as well because you can change the inside of the cube. Because what's inside of the cube right now is a collider, which is basically how does this object interact with other objects. The collider is basically like a box inside the box. So, for example, if I make it smaller, then things will just pass through the box up until they hit the collider. Whereas if I make it larger, things won't be able to actually touch the box. They'll just bounce off this like invisible cube instead. So now that I've done that, that's a pretty good introduction to a lot of the stuff you can do. Now that I've done that, I'm going to undo everything, and we'll start on a little project, okay? We're gonna make a snowman. So let's get to building a snowman now that you know how to place objects. So first I'm going to create 3 3D object spheres. 1, 2, 3. And note that it's always important to name your objects so that you know what they are. So we'll call this one bottom body. We'll call this one middle body, and we'll call this one head. So as you can see, we've now got 3 spheres, and I'm going to scale them appropriately. So right now, these all look way too big, so just scale it down. And we've also got middle body, so I'll scale it down as well, but not as much as the head, because we want the head to be the smallest one. And now what I'll do is I'll use the move tool and move all of this up. So move the middle body up, and now we've got the body of the snowman. Now, what we want to do next is figure out how to, build out the snowman. And again, you can't, it's not even necessarily that you have to do just cubes and spheres. I can also add 3D objects like capsules, cylinders, planes, whatever. So if I hit cylinder, as you can see here, this is a pretty tall cylinder. But I'm going to call this the snowman's nose. So what I can do here is, you can just follow along as well, but I'm going to hit rename, and we're going to call this nose. And again, I'll just rotate it and scale it way down and make it nice and long. So now our snowman has an appropriate nose. But it's still, so now that our snowman's nose is appropriately scaled, I'm going to just move the camera a little closer. It's, as you can see here, it's got a very long nose, but what if I want to move the head? What if I want the head to go way up, right? I could do this, but it looks like I have to move the nose separately, and it might be too high. I might put it too low by accident. I'm just gonna Control Z and undo that. What you can do instead is something called parenting, which is attaching different objects to each other. So right now the head and the nose are separate, but if I click and hold on the nose, I can drag it onto the head, like this, and now you can see we've got a little arrow. So now the nose object is under the head object. So if I move the head, it'll move both. But, if I still want to move the nose, let's say, inside a little more, I can also do that. So the nose is kind of a child of the head object, and the head object is the parent. So, now we've got something that looks a little bit more like a snowman, but it's still just doesn't look good at all, does it? So we'll add some eyes, we'll maybe add some arms as well, and I'll see you back in a little bit. Try and use some of the objects here, like spheres, capsules, cylinders, and try and make a snowman of your own. Alright, hopefully you've got something similar. Maybe you've added a couple other things to your snowman, like a hat maybe, or a pipe, or a beard, or anything you want. So now that we've got the snowman, and what I'll do is I'll create a new object to hold everything, and we'll just call this snowman. Again, we'll use all the parenting stuff that we talked about already here. So the head, the middle body, and the bottom body are all going to be children of the snowman parent object. So if I want to select it, I can just move everything, or I can move individual stuff. But now you may be wondering, well, like, it just looks like everything is made of snow around, right? Like, for example, if the arms are sticks, they don't look like sticks. Now we come to something called materials. Down here you can see there's a section here called assets. You can look at a lot of this different stuff. Some of these packages you don't have to worry about yet, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to all materials. I'm going to right click, I'm going to hit create, and I'm going to hit material. So now we've got a new material. You may be wondering, what is a material? A material is basically, you may have heard the word texture thrown around if you've played video games before. If not, it's basically a texture. So it provides color, it provides a pattern if you want that as well. But we're just going to call this one wood, because that's what we want it to be for the arms. Okay? So now that I've got wood, I can change the color by clicking this albedo. I'm going to make it just a nice dark brown. And I'm going to save that. So now what I can do is, if, let's say I want the stick's arms, I want them to be made of this wood, I can drag it on and put it on. Fun fact, you can actually go to the Unity Asset Store, which we'll cover in a future video, and get some materials for yourself. If you want, for example, metal, you can do that. And, you know, even after I've got it all set up, I can, you know, change it. I can, if we want the wood to shine just like metal, we can do that. It looks more like bronze now, right? If we want it to be super smooth, you can do that. Very rough, you can do that as well. I'm just going to keep it where it is right now. And there's a lot of other stuff you can do here as well. Take your time, you know, color your guy in by, again, remember, create, after right-clicking, create, material, and you can make new ones. I'm going to, you know, add some color to the snowman, and I'll see you in a little bit. Alright, now as you can see, we've got a very, very pretty looking snowman character. You can click on each individual object, for example this right arm here, and you can see its properties. So you can see it's got a transform property that shows where it is and how it's rotated, what size it is. You can see it's got a couple of other things just to render it in the scene. It's got a collider. We'll talk about that in a future thing, but that's basically, again, it's just a physics object that lets you interact with this. And finally, we've got the wood material attached to it. You can add other components to it as well, which, in fact, I think that's what we're going to do. I'm going to move the camera into the snowman's head, so we can just pretend for a second the snowman is your player character. I don't know if your game, if you're making one, will actually have a snowman, but let's just do that. And again, we'll use parenting and attach the main camera to the snowman object. Specifically, I'll attach it to the head. There we go. So now you can see it's got the camera icon kind of hiding it there, but your snowman is your main character. You can see what this looks like in the game. Right now, obviously nothing's happening, but if I hit the play button up here, it might take a little bit to load, but right now I am the snowman character. Alright, now to finish up, we're going to learn how to apply code to objects. So the first thing I'm going to do is select the snowman object I've got here. As you can see, there's not a lot over here in this inspector window right now. We're going to click add component, and I'm going to add what's called a rigid body. Now this is what you're going to do if you want to add any kind of functionality to your objects, is first you're going to add whatever you need. In this case, a rigid body means that this will be affected by physics and we can move it around using code. So now that I've got this rigid body, I'm going to turn off gravity for now. We don't want it falling down, but I'm going to show you how to move the snowman with some code. So I'm going to turn on isKinematic. And now we're just going to write some simple code to move it forward. So now what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to create a coding script for the snowman. What I'm going to do first is hit add component, and you can type in whatever you want here and set it as the name of your script. And now hit New Script. I'll call it just Move Snowman because that's what we want to do, and I'm going to hit Create and Add. So now this attaches a script to your character, or in this case the snowman. Now it doesn't do anything yet because we haven't modified it. You're going to learn more about coding in a future lesson, but for now I'm just going to show you how to move the snowman. I'm going to double click on this code that just got added to my assets. And now you can see here, we've got a couple of different voids. Again, you'll learn more about these, but for now, I'll just say start happens only at the very first second of the game, before the frame update. And update is called once per frame, so basically it's continuous, it keeps happening. In this case, I'm gonna hit enter here, and use this code. Transform.position plus equals vector3.forward times time.delta time. So what this will do is it'll just move forward every second. And now let's see if it works. Always make sure to save. I'm going to use Control S. You can use Command S if you're on Mac. And that has just saved it. And now I'm going to close it and see if it works. I'm going to hit play. It might take a second to load. I can go back to scene, and as you can see, the snowman is moving great. You can always switch between the scene and the game views to figure out how your game looks. But since there's nothing on the screen right now other than the snowman, you can't really tell, but it is moving. That's it for today's lesson. You can keep experimenting with the Unity editor and find more tools to explore. In the next lesson, we'll be learning about how to download and use assets from the Unity Asset Store to flesh out the world of your project. Thanks for following along.